Hello everyone, welcome back to the second episode of The Intern. Today we have a very special guest. His name goes by Neil Mitra. Neil is an 18-year-old student who has not only achieved a lot for his age, but has become the golden child for every family event where moms and dads brag about their kid. Today, Neil is someone I've known beforehand, and I'm very glad that he came on to this podcast. So without further ado, Neil, if you could introduce yourselves to the audience, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Maz. So my name is Neil Mitra. I'm a presidential scholar here at the University of British Columbia, currently studying engineering. And I run Mitra Biotechnologies, which is a startup company in the point of care device space. So that's a bit of an overview.
Yeah, thank you so much, Neil. Again, like I mentioned, I'm really glad you came here for us today. One thing I want to ask you, Neil, what's going on in your life right now? What are you up to? Other than obviously running businesses and stuff, like what do you do in your free time? Or if you have it free time?
Yeah, I guess for most of my free time, I usually read books, some occasionally meditate.
That's sick. That's sick.
Sometimes, but I usually maintain like a pretty strict schedule. So most of my free time, quote unquote, is usually just having enough time to maybe like meet others as well as
Like what we do.
It's not a whole lot of free time, but yeah.
That's crazy. That's actually say like for someone our age, you are already living like the dream of like a lot of young students. Like well, that's like the reason people go to university to be in your place. Could I ask what type of books you're into, like fiction, nonfiction, or magazines?
Yeah, for me, like I mostly I actually read textbooks in my free time.
Textbooks, like
So yeah, just genuinely like big textbooks. So recently I've just been rereading like Molecular Biology of the Cell by Alberts.
that's
It's been
it.
a pretty good book. Yeah, I either read research papers and stuff like that in my free time, but generally in terms of like a fiction versus nonfiction perspective, heavily on the nonfiction side, and I also I like reading business books. So one of the most recent ones that I really liked was Fundraising by Ryan Breslow. It's not really a book; it's more like it's like a short type of book, which goes in depth in terms of like the fundraising journey for most successful companies.
That's it.
So that was a very interesting book.
Could you you said you mentioned research papers. How do you or when did you start actually reading them? Because for us, we actually have to read research papers too, but I've noticed they're very hard to understand, at least I guess for me at least, and like the diagrams, it's not something you're like at least like you're familiar with like the blot chart and like all these different types of graphs, right? And I'm guessing because you're doing like cell biology and stuff. When did you actually like get into that, or like how did you just understand them? Was it right away, or did you do some more research, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not really possible to understand those things right away, right? So
Yeah.
to understand diagrams and stuff like that in research papers, it's honestly just by like starting small and then like gradually building up your skill. Like I think like the main thing is you really need to read a lot. And the main thing with the advantage of research papers is that they always reference other journals. So if you're confused on a certain topic, it's most likely that they have a reference to another journal, and then
Yeah.
you read that journal, and you'd have more topics that you're confused on, and you go more in depth into those topics. So it's sort of like you start off with like one research paper, but at the end of the day, just off that one, in order to understand it fully, you're like reading like nearly 20 other research papers all at once to understand what this one research paper is saying. So it's like it's honestly like a very time-consuming task.
Yeah, I can
I
imagine.
haven't been frankly even times of like time to read it. Say I usually go to nonfiction books nowadays related to business because they're a bit like I have more time to do that. But I usually over breaks and stuff like that I like reading research papers just to stay in the loop in terms of what is currently happening in the world of science.
Do, do you read like when you say business, like if I have you ever read like how to win friends and influence people, like
Yes.
what do you think of that one?
It's honestly, it was like my first introduction to like the world of business books, and I think it's like one of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah, I know, I completely agree, man. It's
Without it, I would not have made the connections that I've made today. So it's a very powerful book. So I recommend to anyone to read that.
Yeah, it's a really popular. Have you ever read 48 Laws of Power?
Okay, I started reading it and then I like
Is it kind of messed up? Like, do you think am I the only one that?
yeah, it is. Like it's a good way to see who to avoid more than anything.
Yeah, no,
I think it's like more like a cautionary tale in my perspective. There are a few things there which, um, yeah, which I completely I disagree with, and like it's not that I don't think the book should never have been written. I think it's a very good thing that the book has
yeah,
been written. I feel like it's a really good handy tool for individuals who might um, like who are looking to build a stronger mind more than anything. I feel like that book is very good if you want to build a stronger mind. But I wouldn't particularly like recommend outright manipulating people to go to
yeah, no,
want to go, which is pretty much what the book tries to tell you in terms of a TLDR perspective. So it's like I don't particularly like would go out of my way to recommend that book to anybody.
yeah.
It's a cautionary tale. If you want to avoid certain types of people, then I think it's a good book to read.
Yeah. You put it really well. Like I honestly like when I was reading it, I was like, this is something like if I wanted to be a dictator, I would like kind of read. You know what I'm saying? Like that like that's the vibes I got. I mean, I personally do think like you said, like I feel like if someone were to read it, I feel like your perspective when you're reading has to be different. Like if you use it to like use it on people, yeah, it's probably not. It's probably going to be like an evil like technique or whatever. Sorry. Anyways, we went on a tangent. I think the real reason we're here is to talk about your life and your startup and all that because I think, at least for me, I really want to start a startup, and I know a lot of people listening want to start a startup too. And for someone at a very young age to do it, could you just tell us everything and like exactly? The main question is where it began. Like I feel like that's like Newton said, like nothing starts until you put motion to it. So where did this whole start? Where did this whole thing start? Not like this one, like. Talk about Icane and before that and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, certainly. That's a very long story. I think there's like a write up of that somewhere on the internet where I go really in depth into it. But yeah, so I would say like my ever since I was a little kid, I was like I've always been like somehow naturally drawn to the world of medicine.
Okay.
Specifically specifically cardiology. Like for some unknown reason, ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to become a cardiac surgeon. Like that's like one of the things that I wanted to become.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted like my childhood dream was to build like these surgical tools and do cardiac surgery. Like that was my goal. I have no reason why. Like that's like the most hilarious thing is that like people ask me why I like medicine so much, and it's like the generic answer is that I want to help people, but it's deeper than that, and I don't exactly know how to put it into words.
Yeah,
It's like
no.
something that just naturally that
Could I?
was.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but could I ask you a quick question? You say medicine, but why not med school?
So okay, yeah. So this relates to like more gradually as I started to learn more. So like in like grade 7, I started doing science fairs. So
Ah.
so my grandmother, she's visually impaired.
Oh.
She tried to build a device that could aid visually impaired individuals, which eventually became iCane in grade 9. So throughout grade 7, grade 8, and grade 9, I just kept on developing that device. And in grade 9, I decided to form a company out of it. Like we participated in a speech competition at MIT. We got to know a whole bunch of people through there. And while I was in grade 9, my close aunt passed away due to a heart attack.
I'm sorry for that.
Come up with a solution that could prevent, or potentially, essentially prevent heart attacks. And by trying to analyze the root cause, I realized that the root cause is within point of care diagnostics, trying to reduce the time to intervention more than anything in time critical cases such as cardiac events. So I started researching at the University of Waterloo while I was in grade 10. And throughout COVID, I did more science fairs and whatnot with my project that I had at the University of Waterloo. And in the summer of 2020, I founded Neil Mitra Biotechnologies. And during the same time, iCane was still ongoing. But Neil Mitra Biotechnologies really like accelerated forward like last year in 2022. So like October 2021, we were back in the labs after like 18 months due to COVID.
Okay.
Able to access that. And then. We really accelerated our progress, and I was spending a significant load of my time on Mitra Biotechnologies. Um, and the issue with iCane was that um, we couldn't really achieve like the most optimal product fit um, with our company, and like that was like one of the major issues. The other major issue was that um, as my first company, right? So like I
Yeah,
made
no,
like
no.
a lot of mistakes along the way, especially when I came to building like a good team and so forth. So I took my learnings from that and really applied it to Mitra Biotechnology as well. I would say, um, and that's like I think the main thing about startups is that you should never go with the expectation that you are going to succeed, because the statistical likelihood of you succeeding is low with a startup company. However, if you are determined enough for something, I believe no matter like how much odds are against you, you can succeed if you are willing enough. So like another huge portion as to why startups don't work out is because of founder grit. I think founder mentality and founder perseverance is really, really important.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I eventually had to shut down iCane in 2022, like April of 2022, because I wanted to focus on Mitra Biotechnology.
Yeah.
I feel like that has been more impactful to the world than iCane would have, at least for now. Maybe I'll go back to iCane when I have more time. And yeah, I just really like biomedical engineering as well. So I wanted to build medical devices and I wanted to commercialize them, and that's pretty much my end goal. Or well, at least it's the goal for now. And everything related to medicine, that's for sure.
Could,
So
could I just
yeah, so
add?
that's kind of an overview. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it, but one thing you mentioned was about the founder mentality, or like the perseverance you go to. Like, for me at least, like being in university, I find myself sometimes not even motivated. Like, how do you find motivation? Like, you say you meditate, but is that like I?
Well, I mean, well, it really comes down to what you really want, right? Like, I think like a lot of it's like, uh, what benefit do you want to see for others? And if so, like, nobody's really going to do it for you. So it's like, I think a lot of it's also passion. So like, I feel like you're definitely not alone in terms of things like that. Like, I feel like a lot of universities, the students definitely feel, or like even high school students for that matter, feel that they don't really have a purpose in terms of what they're learning. Like, aside from graduating and then finding a job or something like that.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, that's like, and this is what one of my mentors, Naveed Nathu, who's the founder of TKS, he was also mentioning is that a lot of individuals, unfortunately, live their worst possible outcome. So, like, if you think of a university student graduating from like a STEM background, their worst possible outcome is literally getting a job and working at it. That's like their worst possible outcome. If you think,
Oh, yeah. No, that's fair.
yeah. So like that most people are like, and most university students are unfortunately living their worst possible outcome. Now for some people, it may be the thing that they want to do.
Yeah.
That's completely fine. Like I know a lot of folks who just want to like work at a company, go to like a high level of it, and just chill. Like that's completely fine. I can respect that. If that's what you really want to do. But I would say like to think back when you were a child and what you wanted to do when you were a child.
Yeah.
At least I feel like that's where you can find like your core passion. I believe that everybody has something within them that they are truly exceptional in, and that they can really persevere in all throughout. And it could even just be a skill. It doesn't necessarily have to be a domain area. It can just be a skill. So when it comes to school and when it comes to all that, I think the key thing is to time manage it properly, and to see where the subject could be applied. And frankly, it's to finally do it. Like actually taking action is sometimes the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
So you always have to have like this bias towards, not bias towards, more or less. You should always try to figure out how you can execute the most correct path as fast as possible. Like that is essentially, I think that is like how you would determine like natural smartness, is how fast can somebody execute a certain task with the correct procedure in the least amount of time, is how you would try to figure that out.
So would you consider that being like witty? Like if someone's smart, they're pretty witty?
I mean, I don't think like witty is more like a phrase that has a negative notation tone to it. I feel like it's more um, like I believe that intelligence doesn't really matter at all. I think at the end of the day, what really matters is your drive and how much perseverance you have. Like
Oh,
you
okay.
really have to be diligent more than anything, and you have to be diligent continuously. Like you can't just expect to work hard one day and then not work for like 4 days of the week and then go back to working hard again.
Yeah.
It's like you should live in extremities. I think like work really hard, but when you need to rest, like genuinely rest, so that you can go back to like working hard and doing the things that you love. So
So I actually have a question for you. So what you mentioned is similar to like, have you ever seen that triangle for engineering, like social life, grades, sleep? Okay, so if you haven't, essentially there's a triangle where it's like, on the top it's like social life, on the side it's like grades, and then it's like sleep, and it says you can only have two, right? So it's basically indicating like for you to do well in like 2 out of 3, you have to sacrifice something. So this is a question for you, and you don't have to answer it, but you said you've always been like passionate about like bringing like your company to life and like being like helping a lot of people, but obviously this comes with a lot of drawbacks and like sacrifices you had to make. Could you speak on like or touch upon some of the sacrifices you made, and like looking back, like is there anything you would have changed? Like, is was whether it was sleep or social life or maybe a bad test, or yeah, just please touch upon that.
yeah, certainly. Like I mean, I think especially in high school when I was in grade 9, grade 10. I do not think I was definitely not the most top academic performing student, and I think a lot of that was because I didn't find the content in grades 9 and 10 to be as intellectually stimulating as those in grade 11 and grade 12.
Yeah.
So I started in study. I was like a low 90 student in grade 9 and grade 10 in high school. But then in grade 11 and grade 12, like all my marks were like, especially like within STEM courses, they were all like 97 and above.
Yeah.
In fact, 97 was my lowest STEM mark, just in AP chemistry.
Wow.
In terms of and I found the content in grade 11 and grade 12 and like university materials to be really intellectually stimulating. Like that was like when I could finally use my brain more than anything.
Oh, I see.
It was like, very exciting to do that.
Yeah.
Like there's like that phase of like what is really exciting. Like if you find like work or like sciences and natural sciences, like math to do really interesting and fascinating. Then I feel like that's something that comes naturally. But like I think the sacrifice that I made in throughout high school was like sleep was one. Ironically, back in grade. Actually, no. Sleep was definitely something that was a bit of a sacrifice in grade 11. That was like my busiest. That was like the most academically rigorous year that I ever had, because I also took it on myself to do 5 AP exams before taking the course itself in grade 12.
Wait.
Study 5 AP exams, all STEM.
Aren't you supposed to do it after the course though?
Yeah, exactly. So I self-studied, and you can still take the exam without taking the course.
That's sick.
It's definitely allowed, as long as you paid the fees for it.
Yeah.
Except I was doing that. I had a full like pre-AP course load. I also was doing Canada-wide Science Fair at the same time. I did the Sanofi Science Fair. I also did International DECA. That was also during the year of entire online school due to COVID.
Yeah.
And I was managing 2 companies at once. So that was not very. That was like definitely like a very busy period of my life, and that is when I think I figured out how I actually work most efficiently. So, like in grade 12, I fixed all those issues, and I was able to do a lot more and a lot more well. I would say, especially on the company side, simply and on the grade side for that matter too, because my grades like also improved from grade 11 in grade 12. So it's like. I think like the major sacrifices there were like unable to know how to time manage. I think as long as you know how to time manage, you can really have all 3. Like you can have those good grades, you can have sleep, and you can have like a social life. You just have to be really strict in terms of what you spend your time on.
Yeah.
So, and you also have to work efficiently. Like, for me, I have like hard set cutoffs on when I don't work. So, for instance, on weekdays, I try not to work past 8 p.m. The only exception is maybe like a bit of research work here and there that I have to do, but I find that to be enjoyable and a bit relaxing.
What time do you wake up then?
I wake up at 5 a.m. That's one thing that I do. Like I go to bed at 9 and I wake up at 5.
Damn.
So I do that on like so 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. like Sunday to like Friday night, and then Friday night and Saturday night it gets pretty late, mostly because that is when I either hang out with friends or I work more hours on the company end, and then Sunday I just use it to like finish all the week's work for school. So like I just pretty much sit in my room and I just do like I don't know like 12 hours of school straight and I'm done.
For the
So
week.
I don't have to do anything for any like I don't really need to do any homework for the week. I can just like mostly focus on my company for the vast majority of my time by just doing that. So
You know, your whole life story. I don't know if you've heard of this guy, but you remind me of Ali Abdal. Like he had the same kind of how do you say, upbringing, I guess. Like he kind of started with like, I guess he was into medicine and he was kind of into like computer science or something. But he made like a company related to like those two like factors, and then he kind of did the same thing at your age too. So like, I don't know. Have you ever heard of Ali Abdal?
yeah, I've heard of him. I don't watch his videos. I don't really have time to watch YouTube.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, but like that's actually crazy. Like you're very similar to his lifestyle. Anyways, yeah. Could you touch upon TKS? Like, what is that, and how did it help you?
So, like, for me, like, I joined TKS after founding both of my companies. I think, like, TKS has been really helpful in order to garner connections for my company.
Okay.
After, when I became an alumni, I think during the Innovate program, it's a bit more restricted, but after I became, like, an alumni, I feel like I really, really could gain a lot of TKS from, like, their contacts and stuff like that. I'm just, like, genuinely making good relationships with a lot of TKS directors and like, expanding my network. I think that was like the biggest thing with TKS is like, it really helps you if you're in the founder stages. Because like, there's so many, like there's like 20 or 30-ish TKS students who are genuine founders of companies. And it's like, it's very helpful to have like a founder community because there's very few people I think who can relate to like the amount of like work that a startup requires, because it's genuinely like it's difficult. Like it's not an easy thing to do. I definitely love doing it, but it's like it's a lot of work.
I see. What's something you project for? What's something you're hoping to project? Like, what's your projection looking like? What are you hoping to do in like 5 years or something with this company? Like, are you going on to making like an even bigger company, or are you a different branch of medicine or healthcare? Please elaborate on that.
Yeah, for me, like like there's definitely a strong vision component for the company, but what I see happening for this company is to pretty much like restructure the way that diagnostics as a whole is potentially done. So the only way that we can do that really is by getting acquired by like a larger firm, like something like one of the larger diagnostic companies, and that way like we'd be like a subsidiary of them, and with their infrastructure we'd be able to expand our technology to like a lot of different places and like really have a true impact in that perspective. In terms of where I see myself in 5 years, honestly, like there's a funny saying which is like projections are all made up in the startup world. You don't know how much revenue you're going to make until you start making revenue, and all the finance stuff is all really just made up. At its core, it's all made up. You can't say you're going to make $10 in the future if you don't make $10 in the future. It's all based on speculation on a lot of like how the financial projections and stuff like that are done. So it's like I'd be like I frankly don't know where my company is going to be in like 1 month, because we often like overshoot our progress.
Oh,
we,
I see.
We complete more every single month than the last month. And like we always have like a goal for each month, and we keep on exceeding them. So it's like we just have a general direction, which is like, to get this device to market. So do that well, and do that as fast as possible. So that's pretty much our two main goals. So like until we hit that, like, we're still keeping at it. So it's important for us to like make like significant progress month after month. So that's like the major stress for startups, is that you have to be growing no matter what, month after month.
What is something you expected when, like, you talk about like projections are false because you can't really predict the future and stuff. But what's something you were like expecting when starting a startup? Like, were you thinking it's going to be fun, or like do you know what I mean? Like when you think something's going to be fun, and then when you actually put in the work, you realize it is fun, but it's a lot more work than you expect. Like if you could talk to yourself before you even started all this, like what's your key piece of advice, I would say, like, or something you would be like telling yourself, like, be aware of this or something?
Yeah, like honestly, it's like to not be afraid of making like those mistakes. Like I frankly wouldn't change anything, because I feel like through every single mistake you like learn something new, and
yeah,
I think you can never make like a successful company if you're mistake-less. You won't be able to make a company if you don't have any mistakes.
I see.
Like, don't be afraid of failure. It's like a huge portion of startups. Like, yeah, like you go through multiple iterations of whatever you're doing, and that's like all part of the process. So I think the major thing is like to really enjoy the process. Like, even if something is like a ton of work, it's still very satisfying. Like it's not like it's not satisfying. So I would just tell myself to just keep at it, like even potentially like even work harder, or like the main thing that I would have asked myself back in grade 9 was to learn how to time manage, so I could have worked harder on my companies at the same time and getting better grades.
Yeah, especially I'm guessing especially in grade 11.
Well, yeah, I mean like grade 11 I was able to maintain those good grades, but
the time management stuff. Was that? Wait, actually, a quick question. Do you have siblings?
no.
So do you, or okay, I made this joke at the beginning, but I don't know if you like the joke, but it was basically like the golden child. So I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but when you're over like whenever I'm with family, friends, or like this is just the stereotype, like parents like to like tell their kids about, like tell other families about their kids, right? I think that's great and all, but like because what happens after is when we get home, my mom or my dad would be like, look, like this guy, look what he's doing. And like, have you ever got told by your friends, like my mom and dad are like jealous of you because they wanted me to be like your, do you know what I'm saying? Like like how do you react to that?
Yeah, no, I think like a lot of high school students that I meet, like that's like what has happened. And frankly, if I were to speak to their parents, I would just tell them to let their children follow their own path, because like I believe it is very wrong for I guess I'm not a parent, I shouldn't have an opinion on this.
No, I mean it's true.
I do not think it is right to like compare and say that somebody,
like,
I find, okay, so like my nationality, like,
yeah, no,
ethnicity is South Asian. So like, hang on one second, just gotta like.
Hey, take your time, man. Take your time. Don't worry.
In terms of my ethnicity, I'm South Asian, so it's like, like I do see like a lot of in my South Asian community, I see like a lot of parents like saying this stuff, and I think that a lot of South Asian parents, their children may be more adept to do like stuff within the languages or like within the arts and stuff like that, but their parents are still forcing them to go into like engineering or something like that. And I think that is wrong. I think that if you have a passion, I think your parents should be very supportive of wherever that passion may lie, and they should encourage you to do well. So it's like highly supportive parents, but like demanding in the sense that they're demanding that you perform well in your passion.
I see.
Because like parents would be the ones to give you a reality check to keep you in track to what your goals really are. They should sort of like be like a life coach more than anything, in my opinion, because I don't think a parent's kids own them anything. So I don't think a child owns a parent's good mark. I don't think a child owns a parent even respect, for that matter. Like, from a biological perspective, your parents were the ones who decided to have you in the first place. So it's like you don't particularly own them anything. They should be life coaches for you, and I think that is like the major thing. So I guess that's a bit of like an out there
A philosophical opinion? No, it's a great opinion, and
I think it's genuinely important that you are able to like that the kids should like genuinely follow their true passion. And I feel like a lot of kids just don't even have the opportunity to explore, because it's frankly a very difficult thing to find what your passion is. Like,
Yeah.
I have to go through like multiple existential crises to figure out like what I really want to do.
Yeah.
So it's like.
But one thing I like about your life story is that you did like science fairs and all these stuff like, kind of early in your life, right? And I think that's something people should do more often, because I feel like if you're isolated in one, like especially just in school, like all we're really doing is learning like simple mathematics and stuff, like the basic understanding. And even though some people find it boring and stuff, I feel like it's kind of on you or your parents. Actually, I think it's more on the person to find like other applications of this. You know what I'm saying? Like for example, for you, like you said you're into biology, but like no offense, biology itself is not, it's kind of boring. But if you apply that to like healthcare and like startups and stuff, I think that's where like the interest comes, at least for me and other but that
I think like for me, like I had like a certain obsession for like the world.
okay, so I guess so it's a bit different, but the idea okay, I know you have to go at 7, so I'm gonna ask you one final question. I think
I can like expect that for like 5 or 10 minutes. But
5 or 10 minutes? Okay, well, I'm glad to hear it. But the thing is, I actually booked this room till 7, so I'll stay as much as I can. I don't know if they're going to kick me out. But the main question I think everybody wants to know is, Neil, when is the book coming out? When are you going to bring out the author? Like, when is this happening? Or you don't have to answer that if you're not into it. And the second question, or if you don't want to answer that one, you could answer, what is something you want to do that's not related? Like, are you into traveling? Are you into, like, helping? Like, have you ever read, I have so many books I want to ask you about. Have you ever read When Breath Becomes Air or, like, The War Doctor?
no, I haven't.
Okay, so are you, like, you understand, like, some people who volunteer in, like, third world countries and help. Is that something you're into, like, traveling and all this? So you can either answer the book question or the latter, so just pick one.
So like I guess for the book question, like frankly, that's a question that is far later down the road.
Okay.
I would have to make like a genuine impact on the world before that.
Okay.
So, yeah. I think like the thing for sorry, you mentioned that
The volunteering and stuff?
yeah, volunteering. So like yeah, for me, like I had the fortunate experience of like being able to travel to a lot of different places, to a lot of different countries, especially Europe. I think it was like when I most traveled continents. I also got the chance to visit South America and stuff like that, and I really just interacting. I like interacting with the people, and one of my goals is actually to like volunteer in hospitals within like a third, like within like low to middle income countries.
Yeah.
So. Personally, like I my family origin is all from India,
Yeah.
and I know like a lot of one of my friends who's a global team leader. She lives in Colombia and Colombia in South America. So like I sort of want to volunteer in either Colombia or like India within their hospitals. And just see like what it's like, as well as volunteer like within Canadian hospitals. And what I want to see is like the comparison of like what it's like to deal with those different kind of patient demographics and understand like the disparity and the needs required in global healthcare, because at the end of the day, North America's population is it's like a fraction, but it's not like a majority of the world's population. So it's like we still have like such a huge population that is underserved in terms of a healthcare perspective. So it's like definitely need to do something to do that. Otherwise, like nobody's really gonna do it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, like I genuinely like enjoy traveling and meeting people. So like over the summer breaks and stuff like that, I do enjoy traveling, especially to Europe. But I still need to get back on track in terms of like traveling to like low to middle income countries.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, like that's something that I really want to do. I just got to figure out the logistics for that. So.
No, that's fine. I mean,
I've been to India like a couple times before. I think my most recent trip was back in April. The one which was like the latest one before that was back in like 2018.
but I'm guessing that was like for to see family, not to like volunteer.
Yeah, exactly. Like all my trips to India, I've honestly just been to like see family. I've never had the chance to like do anything outside of that. So
Yeah.
I want to do something outside of that and volunteer or like do something with it.
No,
Yeah,
like,
like shadow physicians and stuff like that. Like that would also be like a very exciting opportunity. That really excites me. It's just like providing healthcare to others.
yeah.
Yeah, like,
That's sick, man.
It's something that's very difficult to explain because it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's deeper. It's deeper than just like helping people. I feel like that's a very generic, over the top way of explaining why medicine. But I got to figure out a more polished way of describing.
No, I mean, I think I think that's a really good way you describe it. I feel like obviously, like you mentioned, even like with this whole hour, you're still like trying to explain like your whole reasoning. So I feel like it's a good way to like summarize it, like. Because I don't know about you, like if someone asked me about what's my passion, I'd be like, I don't know, man. Like I'm not really trying to spend a whole hour just to explain it. You know what I'm saying? But no, that's it. I think personally for me, I'm inspired, man. Like after I low-key want to start up a company now, just because from what you're saying and stuff. I mean, obviously it sounds hard and stuff, but I don't know when I'm going to start it. But just like it's in the back of my mind.
Number one advice for anybody trying to build a startup: don't start with the solution, start with the problem.
Start with the problem?
Not like an actual problem that exists and then go ahead and try to see if you can solve it.
Got you.
Don't build a company for the sake of building a company. It's not gonna be very good.
Okay.
That's like the fastest way to
fail.
Become a successful company is to create a solution first and then find a problem for it. I find a lot of software companies doing that. It's just so.
That's actually true, bro. That's.
Like I don't know, they make software that can help turtles or something like that.
Yeah.
Help a turtle build a full stack development website or something like that. Like I kid you not, it's like.
No, I agree. I recently did a hackathon and like these ideas, like they're cool. Like I think the user interface is amazing, but like if you really think about the whole idea, it's like. I don't think anyone actually needs this. I mean, just for a hackathon, but still, like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like everybody goes to a hackathon for a project and make a business out of it. But, like, at the end of the day, it's not that serious. But, yeah, anyways, sorry. I don't want to take any more of your time. I just want to thank you again. I really appreciate this, even though, like, yes, it's my second time. And a lot of stuff was uncoordinated. I'm really happy that you handled this well and you didn't leave because, honestly, if I was in your position, because of my unpreparedness, I would have left too. So I really appreciate you being patient with me. Thank you so much again for coming on. Thank you so much for sharing all your advice, all your knowledge. I look forward to having you again if you're into this because. Yeah,
maybe down a year or two from now.
A year or two? I was thinking like next week. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No. Thank you again. But yeah, any final words you want to say before we go?
Well, if any students are interested, we are hiring for Mitra Biotechnology. So if you follow like our LinkedIn, you'll see like a post there. So we're hiring like undergrads and stuff like that. So if you're interested in working for Mitra Biotechnology, then feel free to apply.
I'm gonna use that to advertise my video that you're hiring.
Thank you so much for like the kind interview. I appreciate being here and
no, thank you so much, man.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Of course, anytime, man.